When psychologists set out to map the landscape of personality, they asked a simple question: what are the core dimensions that capture how people differ from each other? Out of decades of research, factor analysis, and cross-cultural studies, emerged what is now considered the most robust framework in personality psychology, the Big Five traits. These traits are sometimes called the Ocean Model, standing for openness, conscientiousness, extraversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. Think of them as the DNA of personality, the 5 pillars that help describe almost anyone, anywhere. Let's start with openness to experience. This trait reflects imagination, curiosity, and a love for novelty. High scorers tend to be creative, artistic, and open to new ideas. Think of Steve Jobs, who constantly combined technology with creativity. On the other hand, people low in openness often prefer structure, tradition, and practicality. They are grounded and resistant to change, which isn't a flaw. It often brings stability. Research has shown that openness is strongly linked to innovation, but also that too much openness can lead to restlessness and lack of focus. Next is conscientiousness. This trait is about self-discipline, order, and responsibility. People high in conscientiousness are dependable, organized, and often high achievers. A fascinating study by Lewis Goldberg found that conscientiousness is the single strongest predictor of job performance across all industries. These are the people who plan ahead, meet deadlines, and follow through on commitments. On the flip side, low conscientiousness is linked to spontaneity, flexibility, and sometimes procrastination. It's why some people thrive in structured environments while others excel in chaotic, creative ones. The third trait is extraversion. At its core, extraversion reflects energy, sociability, and assertiveness. Extroverts thrive in groups, enjoy stimulating environments, and draw energy from social interaction. Think of Oprah Winfrey, whose charisma and social energy became her brand. Introverts, on the other hand, find energy in solitude, deep conversations, and reflective work. Susan Cain's book Quiet highlighted how introversion, long undervalued in many cultures, actually fuels creativity and leadership in its own quiet way. Interestingly, neuroscience has shown that extroverts have more responsive dopamine systems, which makes them seek out stimulation and reward. Then we have agreeableness. This is the trait of warmth, empathy, and cooperation. Highly agreeable people are compassionate, good team players, and deeply concerned with others' well-being. Research by Graziano and Eisenberg found that high agreeableness predicts prosocial behavior, things like volunteering and charitable giving. Yet, too much agreeableness can sometimes make a person vulnerable to being taken advantage of or struggling with assertiveness. People lower on agreeableness may appear competitive, skeptical, or blunt, but in certain fields, like law or business negotiations, that toughness can be an asset. Finally, there's neuroticism. This trait captures emotional reactivity, sensitivity to stress, and vulnerability to negative emotions. High neuroticism often shows up as anxiety, mood swings, or worry. While it may sound entirely negative, neuroticism has adaptive elements. It makes people more cautious, more alert to threats, and sometimes more empathetic to others' suffering. Low neuroticism, by contrast, is linked with emotional stability, calmness, and resilience. Research shows that people with lower neuroticism tend to report higher life satisfaction, but moderate levels of it can sometimes fuel creativity and awareness. One of the most fascinating things about the Big Five is how universal they are. Studies in more than 50 cultures, from Western countries to small tribal communities, find the same 5 dimensions emerging again and again. This suggests that these traits are not just social inventions, but deep-rooted patterns in human psychology. Think about the combinations here. A person high in openness and extraversion might become an adventurous traveler or entrepreneur. Someone high in conscientiousness and agreeableness may shine as a dependable leader or caregiver. A mix of low agreeableness but high conscientiousness could describe a tough but efficient CEO. The Big Five don't label people. They map out tendencies, showing us both strengths and vulnerabilities. Another important point, these traits are measurable. Tools like the Neo-PIR or even simpler Big Five inventories allow psychologists, and you, to get a snapshot of where you fall. And while traits are relatively stable, they can and do shift with age. Research shows that as people get older, conscientiousness and agreeableness tend to increase, while neuroticism often decreases. It's as if life itself trains us to become steadier, kinder, and more disciplined. So here's a thought to leave you with. If these 5 traits are the building blocks of personality, what does your unique trait fingerprint look like? Where do you score high, and where might you need balance? Understanding this framework is like getting a user manual for yourself and for the people around you. It helps us predict behavior, improve teamwork, build stronger relationships, and even choose careers that align with our personalities. In the end, the Big Five remind us that personality is not about good or bad, but about patterns. And once we see those patterns, we gain the power to navigate them, adapt them, and use them to live more consciously.